Welcome back, Steeler fans, to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know my colleagues, Will Masek, Brad Ben, Corey Karbowski, Corey39. Gentlemen, I'm not going to lie. The game kind of went how I thought it would.
We have a new sponsor this week. I'm sorry before we talk.
You're right. Oh my gosh.
What? A new sponsor this week. We're sponsored by Effervescent Vitamin C from Whole Foods because that's what I'm living on right now. Wait,
gotcha.
Get an angle by my face. There we go. 365 vitamin C.
Did you at least like it? Or
no. It might help me get through the show without dying. Okay. So hats off to you, Jeremy, for taking over.
Fair enough. But yeah, so the game kind of went how I expected it to go. You just had one team that was clearly better, playing better in all phases of the game. I've got some complaints. I'll get to those here shortly. But yeah, just Travis Etienne able to run the ball. Josh Allen made everyone across from him his little bitch, and Kenny Pickett. That you know what, I'm going to start out first complaint there. Kenny Pickett. Good Lord Jesus Christ. What is he not doing looking at the down on the goal line? How is the rub/pick not where his eyes go right when that ball is snapped? That is the most egregious miss in his entire football career. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's more opportunities up there, guys, but I was absolutely livid. This is probably the most livid I've been yelling at a TV screen that I've been in a very long time, just because when you do a read and a pick there, that is your number one, where you're going, where the ball has to come out right away. It is not option 3, which is what it looked like to Kenny Pickett. Just from my pedestrian view, a guy who's never played quarterback, he literally went right, middle, that middle. And then he not only was he late on it, he threw it so far off Deontay Johnson that he had he probably had like a 5% chance of catching that.
He almost caused an ACL injury in Deontay Johnson trying to get back on it.
Gotcha. He almost caused me to have a sports hernia. I mean, good Lord, guys.
Jumping out of your seat. Oh!
I am not lying. I was probably yelling at the top of my lungs at my TV for probably a whole straight minute, every curse word you could possibly imagine. That's the most pissed off I've ever been in a long time watching Steelers football. Long time. I don't know. I mean, guys, you can dive into a little bit more about Kenny Pickett, or else I'm just going to keep going off on how pissed I was, and I don't want this show to go down that rabbit hole. So,
okay, you know what's funny though? Corey came to my house and we watched the game together for the first time. And did we yell? Did we throw objects? Mostly we were just like, "Yep, there it is." Fuck. Yeah.
But damn.
Pretty much. Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't. By the time I got to the point of missing Deontay Johnson there open in the end zone, I held no real aspirations that they were going to make a miraculous comeback and win that game. I guess that touchdown might have made it a bit closer a game, but
I think he would have put Pittsburgh up by 1.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that ultimately they had all these turnovers. And before Mitch Trubisky came in the game, winning the turnover battle 3-0, and yet it still ended up being a 2-score game. But I feel like, Jacksonville might have won by 5 scores if, they hadn't had some bad breaks or made some mistakes like that. So it didn't have the feeling of like, oh, we had victory in our hands and we just screwed it up. But maybe Corey has a different opinion.
The quote that I really liked this weekend from Tomlin was that the turnovers that the defense created were not advantageous for the offense.
If someone wasn't going to bring that up, I was. So, Corey, keep running with
it. I guess it's not I personally think it's advantageous for the offense to not have to get 6 to 10 more points, depending on if they come out with field goals or touchdowns. But, apparently, according to Matt Canada, we're also not a team built to come back from behind. So maybe once we're down a little bit, it's just kind of, whatever goes, play calling wise. But, how do you send a message to your defense like that? Like, oh, yeah, those turnovers you guys caused, whatever. That's just
Not good enough. Got to
It
score.
seems like it seems like he's so dead set on like, create short field, then the offense can score. Where it's like, holding the Jags to 20 points. I mean, that's granted it's raining, but that's a good showing from the defense. Like you can say what you want about specific plays, and 7 of them was on a coverage bust. I mean, that'll happen with a rookie corner in there, but that's what I mean. So they really held him to a legitimate 13. They might have scored on that drive anyways, but like an earned 13, you know what I mean? So, the defense played well, and then you come out after the game and those turnovers didn't help out the offense. So who really cares about them? Like you're still keeping points off the board. It seems like he's just so dead set in, the formula where it's got to be, turnover on the opposite 30, and then if we got an interception on the other side of the field, we might have gotten 3 more points out of it. So it could have been 20-13 because we probably weren't scoring a touchdown anyways.
I mean, I had no faith they were going to make it to 17, as you know from last week's show, where I was like, I said they were going to score 17, and like 30 seconds later, I was like, what am I thinking? But I do agree that now I'm famous for saying that not all turnovers are created equally. If it's 3rd down and 15, and you wing a deep ball from your own 20-yard line and it's intercepted at the other team's 20, that's not really a problem, right? I mean, it's like a substitute punt, and you took a shot, so it's better than a punt. But yeah, when you thwart a team in the red zone, or you get a something that takes points off the board, then yeah, absolutely, it should matter. But yeah, apparently the standard for the defense scoring is higher than the standard he has for the offense scoring, which is weird. But his mentality about the game is weird. About that coverage bust and your rookie corner, here's the thing. Najee Harris has got, the kind of player that's so dynamic that he can split out wide and run by Joey Porter Jr. to get to the, wait, I'm sorry. It's not Najee Harris. That was Travis Etienne, who was taken how many picks later by a different team? Yeah, it's like, this is in a nutshell, when people are talking about, what running back attributes are valuable in the NFL. Speed, first of all, always valuable. You can figure out a way to use that guy, particularly if he's not completely incapable of pass protecting. But if you have somebody that's great in the pass game to be able to get out, split out wide like that, it doesn't matter if he can pass protect. I think they were empty, I think, in that set. So it doesn't matter. There's nobody needs to be pass protecting if you can run by corners like that. So anyway, that was a very I think that's a mistake that maybe the corner, looking in the backfield a little bit, and he'll learn from that mistake. But having the dynamic talent to do that and be willing to use it on offense to do that. Like, when's the last time? I mean, I can tell you, when's the last time a Steelers running back went out wide and ran a fly route and got targeted? Like, it's been a while. I don't even think they used Willie Parker like that ever. I guess
Le'Veon Bell had some moments where he would fly up the seams.
But the quicks, he could line up wide and run a slant and kill anybody.
Yeah.
Or a return route or something. Like, he was amazing at that. But the idea of running past your young, first round corner basically with a running back because I'm sure that play is set up, it's man to man, but I'm sure Joey Porter's thinking, well, this is the running back, so chances are he's not running deep, right? So at any rate, I think the problem with this game is there's so many things wrong with the team that I think is an example I gave about us watching the game sort of in a fatalistic way. It just feels like there's so many problems that there isn't one fix that you could be like, if only they did this and they did this, we'd really have something. I feel like the offensive line is one of the higher paid, offensive lines in the league, and they're not performing very well. They have a first round quarterback after who's played a full season. He's entering into his second full season of games that has not finished something like 40% of the games he started or something. Some 20, 25. I've forgotten exactly how many, but it's a lot. I think it's maybe 8 of 18 or something like that. So, it's a mess.
And the play in between those, when he is getting complete games, there's, moments where he looks like he could be something. But I mean, think of the best quarterbacks in the game right now. Have we seen a single throw from Kenny that looks anything like a Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Lamar, like any of those guys, like anything that, you know, at all.
We just want some hints, right? You just want a couple nuggets that you can hang your hat on and be like, oh, we can just
Like,
protect them a little better.
Look at like a Geno Smith, where Geno Smith will have throws where he laces one over the middle, or who we're about to play. Will Levis comes in and there's two like showtime throws immediately. You look at their receiving core. He had one of them to Hopkins, which was a bit underthrown, but he had two big time throws that were to guys who you probably don't even know like their names. Like you don't even look at them in fantasy.
Westbrook Akine, like good luck for even
Yeah.
Do not defame a Hoosier on this show, gentlemen. I will not let that happen.
But
no, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Kenny is like, has Kenny done anything in his career that Taylor Heineke didn't go out and do for the Commanders, or Taylor Heineke didn't go out and do for the Falcons this past weekend? Like, it's just like, yeah, there's a bit of a clutch factor. I mean, that's cool. That's like a nice trait to have. We've said that since, last year when he came in. But, at some point soon, he's not only got to hit pretty much all his layups, but he's got to start making some big boy throws. And, we can harp on the offense. We've done it all the time. But, there's throws to be made, and he's just not making them. Now, another thing I wanted to add real quick, I wasn't sure if you guys were going to bring it up. I didn't really care to talk about the penalty fiascos this game because I feel like we lost because of how we played. I mean, that was
– Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up the fact that I know we really like to rail on Matt Canada, but boy, we had guys in positions multiple times held to open up the game. We take a shot down the middle to Deontay Johnson that just glances right off his fingertips. I was like, as soon as that happened, I was like, this is just how this day is going to go. Like, just bad omen right from the get-go. Honestly, if he catches that cleanly, he's probably running and scores. I mean, I truly feel like he could have split the safeties there because it got in the middle to where he might have been able to angle him. But either way, would have been a huge play to start a game, which, normally it's 2 yards in a cloud of dust. We can't even get 3. So
no, play call is good. Maybe not for the conditions. I mean, when it's pouring rain like that, like there's some balls that are easier to catch than others. Not to say that he's an NFL, receiver. He should be catching balls, even if he has to sort of go over the shoulder and leap a little bit. That should be in his toolbox. But to do all of that in the rain still makes it, more of a chance of not succeeding because it was nasty at the beginning of the game. I think so.
But I mean,
I do think I do agree with you though that just to add on your point that Canada's play calling and some of the stuff that he set up was, I will give him at least better than the usual stuff that we got. I think they did take the opponent seriously, thinking, well, this is a team we might have to try a little harder to get out of our shell because they're good. Yeah.
But I mean, that ball's a little tall. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's pretty much where it needs to be. Kenny missing that easy, wide open touchdown. Our offensive line getting absolutely almost zero room in the running game. They're just beat up across the board. Honestly, I didn't feel like many guys had too many great days there.
That's one thing I want to say. I saw it a few weeks ago. He's a big Twitter user, Duke Manyweather. Someone asked him what's wrong with the Steelers' offensive line. And this was back, he's the guy who said, if you remember the preseason buzz from before last year, he said Dotson should be a right guard and Green should be at left guard, their natural positions. And, before Green got injured, those two were playing pretty damn well there. So he does have some credibility within this kind of stuff. And someone asked him, why are these good players going to the Steelers and, the O-line still looks bad? He said it's all, it's play calling. Like, guys don't just go and get magically worse. Like, it's what they're being coached to do. I mean, if you're, James Daniels and, you could take your guy for a ride, but you're being coached, we want to keep the pocket. We want to keep the cutback, just latch on, keep your ass to the hole. We want there to be space. I mean, that's what you're going to do. You don't ignore your coach in the NFL. I don't know if it's a Pat Meyer thing. I don't know if it's a Canada thing, but I think a big thing with a lot of the O-line, why we have guys come in like Isaac Simalea and James Daniels, where, they had some more pedigree than how they look when they're actually playing, is, they're just not, they're being coached to do things, not how they would be best at. So that's another thing.
They don't seem to be working as a unit very well. Like that's the aspect of it that's really bothersome. The stunts are always a problem. Part of the reason that Mason Cole has been so terrible is that he's been on the receiving end of stunts that he's not in the right position to pick up. He's like, either late coming over or loses his leverage right away. And that's a surefire way to get beat against a better athlete that's coming from the outside into the center of the field. Mm-hmm. So that's troublesome. Dan Moore missed a bunch of assignments. He was in a completely different blocking scheme than everybody else on some of those run plays I saw. I saw, some cut-ups that were just like, why are you blocking? Why are you blocking that guy to the inside when that's where the hole is designed to be? Like, that kind of thing.
And that's a details thing, and that'll fall on the OC.
Sure. Well,
Dave Moore's not innocent, but that's what bottom line is you got to get guys out there that will do the job, and they just keep rolling them out. If only we had someone who might be able to go in there.
Yeah, like a top draft pick or something like that. Yeah.
No. If Joey Porter, guys, is the exception as a starting role. Guys.
Well, he only had a half a season
more than one rookie.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. What were you saying?
He's only had half a season to finally get starting. So
right, yeah.
Maybe let's not have too high expectations for our first round draft pick.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe staring into week 9 here that we're actually already halfway through the season. Doesn't feel like we're already halfway through the normal.
Feels like an eternity.
Halfway to never had a losing season, baby.
Oh, great.
4-3, right on pace.
Yeah, right on pace for mediocrity. I love it. Even
5 on 5 the rest of the way, and we're all it's forgiven.
Yeah, even though if the playoffs were to happen today, the Steelers would actually own the number 6 spot, ironically enough. And you know where we'd have to go? That's right. We'd have to travel right back to Jacksonville to get our asses spanked. So thank God the season doesn't end today because we already know how that would end. I think we can kind of put this one out of view. That Steelers are on the short week this week. They get, and as Corey said it, the Will Levis-led Tennessee Titans come into Pittsburgh. I originally was hoping to travel to this game. It's not happening, so I'm a little disappointed there. But definitely an interesting matchup considering Levis's big-time performance this past week, 4 touchdown performance in his rookie debut or rookie start. Has he played up to this?
That's his first time actually seeing the field.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was about ready to backtrack if I needed to, but I was pretty sure it was the first NFL action period. So, I think I kind of went back. I watched a little bit of their game because my best friend Wes is a Titans fan, and I thought he had a good day. I didn't think he had a great day. I think the stats show him out to make him out to be super great. There were definitely some areas to work on, but let's face it, I'd probably take Levis over Pickett right now. So I don't really know where I'm taking this. But anyway, definitely some matchups to watch out for this week. Corey, let's start out with you. What do you think is one we need to watch out for?
Don't you steal my matchup, Corey?
Oh, well, I could be. Let's just look at the big one. You were already talking about him. Will Levis, but I'm going to highlight the safeties versus Will Levis because if there was one thing Will Levis showed in that game is that he is more than willing to take shots.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't have it's a completely different story if Minka's back there. If Minka's back there, I'm like, fine, take all the shots you want. I don't really care. That's probably going to be a 3 interception day if you just keep, unloading them deep. But we have Keanu Neal, DeMonte Kazee, Miles Killebrew.
Oh, Miles Killebrew is good enough to give us what we need back there, according to Tomlin. So,
and you gotta, and what might happen is he's probably going to end up being the new Benny Snell this year, where at least before he didn't have to play any defense, but as soon as the Benny Snells start getting on the field, like why the hell's this guy on the team? Good special teamers, but the guy's got to be able to play. But, whoever's back there, I'm concerned because Levis is going to take shots. He's a gunslinger. That's what he is. He's going to step up in the pocket and rip it. He might even, fall backwards and just throw. Like he's just going to throw balls up. And Hopkins, he had a very, very slow start to the year. he was fighting for balls with Levis. I think he's finally like, damn, I'm getting some balls thrown to me. Like, let's get after him. So that worries me. Hopefully Porter and Peterson can minimize that a little, but I am worried about the top being taken off.
Gotcha.
I mean, Levis wasn't thrown into triple coverage or anything though. Like he was, throwing balls away from safeties. He was, speaking of off his back foot, he was throwing 55 yards and dropping it in the bucket off his back foot with the pass rushers in his face. So it's not like, you see that film and you think, I like Jeremy, I see that film and I think, yeah, there were a lot of little things that he could have done better. And he wasn't quite as good as like getting the ball out to wide open check downs that he might have, and instead try to fit in some really, laser in some throws, which is the kind of thing the young quarterbacks do. But I don't think he did anything that was like unsustainable. Like he'll never get away with that against the Steelers this week. Sorry, Jeremy.
No, you're fine. Actually, this kind of leads into a unique perspective I have. So about 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of going to something in Evansville called the Evansville Quarterback Club. They pay speakers to come in. Ironically enough, they bring up the voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that name or not, but he talked to us for a good hour, took questions. One thing he said about Levis is that when they took him, that they were absolutely ecstatic when they were able to take, Levis, at the top of the second round. They absolutely love his mentality. They know he's a smart kid. And the one thing that they don't have to teach Will Levis is how to, quote unquote, can't remember which coach said this, but to sick him. He is not afraid to go out there and play the position and be aggressive. And that's what they loved about him. They have all said, obviously, there are plenty of things he can still work on, but they think he has an extremely bright future there. So that Levis, I still think Levis can be very good. They think he can be very, very good. So, but just to build off that, and kind of what Corey said, I am worried just about his level of velocity that he can generate on his throws. We cannot have guys sitting back like we have in coverage and expect to, contend with these passes. He is not some noodle-armed rookie quarterback that we can just go out there, with the old Dick LeBeau mantra of, oh, we're great against rookie quarterbacks. It's like this
CJ Stroud carved us up, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You don't need too much of a reminder, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think Levis is also the release is so quick. That's the thing about that I really loved about him as a prospect was that, especially after he reconfigured in one offseason of college football, he reconfigured his release completely, making him, much quicker and a lot more accurate. And that's a bigger issue. If you're going to play zone defense, man, you're in trouble against the guy with a quick release. Like that's what shocked the NFL about Dan Marino more than anything else was just from the time he decided to throw until it was already out and there was so short compared to most guys that were playing at that time. Mm-hmm. Can I give you my matchup? Because I made Corey not give it. So because it's probably what he would have said too. I'll bet. It's the first thing I said whenever the matchup was announced. I'm going to forget which one. Jeffrey Simmons?
Jeff Simmons, yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons, Mason Cole. Let's just talk about this matchup for a second. I've been doing the picking for the Steelers in the board mock draft, as most of you listening to the show know, for a long time now. Like, boy, going on 20 years almost, 15 years at least. And I think the best first round pick I've ever made was picking Jeffrey Simmons coming off a knee injury because I just thought, even if he can't play this year at all, which he ended up playing, I think that his rookie year a little bit, but just, amazing player in the middle of a defense who can be not just a guy that stops the run or whatever, but is very disruptive for a guy that size. And sort of like, I think at that point might have been, we were, thinking about losing Hargrave. And I was just like, we could really use this player, right? This last week, he played as good a game as I've ever seen him have in his career. So he's coming off like a career game coming against a guy who played one of the worst games he's ever played as a Steeler, Mason Cole. And it's not that, because they're not Pittsburgh, they move their guys around a lot. So what they were doing when they realized how much trouble Forgotten who the Titans were playing now. Atlanta. When they realized how much trouble the Falcons were having blocking Simmons, they just started moving Simmons around. So at one point they put Simmons in like a wide 9 to one side and everybody else on the other side of the formation. And he still got home because they were just like, then they were sort of confused about like, well, we're going to like double team him. Do we have to go back for the other guys or whatever? And the other guys never even like came over his way. He just sort of looped into the middle and crashed the party. So I think he's a whole lot of trouble for the Steelers. And he has been in previous matchups as well, even when the Steelers had better centers. Like I think he gave Pouncey fits. So yeah, I think that's a huge issue because, regardless of what anybody else on the defense does, if you got some guy in the middle that you have trouble blocking coming free, that as you've seen with the Steelers offense, they have enough trouble with pedestrian guys doing that. And it is the most disruptive thing for an offense. So I worry about that. So that to me is the thing, the matchup that maybe Mason Cole, has a come to Jesus and he decides that this is the night that he's drawing a line in the sand and he's going to play out of his mind. That kind of thing happens once in a while, but I think this is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the obvious one. If we have any chance of winning this game, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, they have to get after Nicholas Petit-Frere, and then former Steeler Chris Hubbard. He's their starting right tackle as of the moment.
I believe Chris Hubbard is still in the league. Can you?
Yeah, I know it. That's
amazing. That guy's had an amazing career. He was a 6th or 7th round draft pick from like very lowly thought of school. Man, that's kudos to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, kudos for him for sticking around. Obviously you like it when, these late round guys can carve out really nice NFL careers. But I mean, if we have any chance of winning, those guys have to have, ears pinned back, ready to go. Really get after this really suspect offensive line all the way through. Skoronski is starting. I'm going to morph this into a little O-line, D-line here, just to keep going on this topic. But I mean, a matchup I'm very interested in is Skoronski is starting to play better for the Titans. He's starting to be more consistent. He's going to be going up against Keanu Benton, Montravius Adams. Those guys have to win that battle because Aaron Brewer at center is no slouch, honestly. He's been playing for the Titans for a few years now. Has always been a very serviceable player. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he's great. But it seems like week in, week out, he's making plays for that team, which is saying something along the offensive line right now. So as much as I would love to say our front seven has, an advantage here, I think it could get stalemated if our edge players do not, take off like we need them to. Okay, because Quan Alexander, not super great when he's asked to take on blockers and then getting off. I know Holcomb had a big game this past weekend, but I mean, when they're running right at you, you're supposed to tackle them. So.
I was going to say it's a good thing that the Titans, with all that trouble with the Steelers edge rushers, it's a good thing the Titans don't have like a huge running back that they could just pound up the middle and kind of negate that pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, one that I was hoping would have been traded earlier today. But
this game would have been a lot different if Will Levis hadn't done what he did last weekend, and if they had traded the running back, then where it's a laugher, right? So
right. Are the matchups we should be aware of this week, guys? Gotcha.
Is it their punt? By the way, is it Corey? Is it the Tennessee punter?
Yes.
Has like the lead. He's like the league average or something.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah,
Stonehouse.
He's always got. So there's two things kind of with that though. So Stonehouse hammered them. He hit some deep. He hit some far, but you get returns off on him. Like that's kind of the catch-22 where you hit him far, but the gunner's also got to run that far to force a fair catch. So there will be return opportunities. Now our punt return team hasn't looked that good all year. I'd assume it's going to be Calvin Austin back there, which
although they didn't have him, they didn't have Calvin Austin as the punt returner last week at times. There's at least
the Atlanta back. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, let's put it this way: on at least one punt return, he was not out there, if I recall correctly. So it made me think like,
you're right.
Great, we're even taking that out of the offense. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but there should be a return chance if we force them to punt. I could really see this being a grinder where we just get the ball ran on us, but that's for the predictions.
Yeah. Yeah, let's leave it for that. One thing I will say, one last thing, just from that Mike Keith that I had that opportunity to meet and talk to a little bit. The Titans are effusive of their praise of Stonehouse. This year, he's getting a lot better at actually aiming where his kick goes. Corey, to like you said, rookie year was more just about banging it through 60-yard bombs and everything. This year, he's doing better when it comes to directionally putting it down where they wanted to. So special teams, could definitely be an area where, like you said, hopefully we can take advantage of that. But I think the only guy that can really do that is Calvin Austin. So, because Will, you are right. I had the same thought at some point this past week. I was like, why is Calvin Austin not out there? Like, if there's ever a play that could probably bring this team back into the game, maybe it's a shot in the arm from Calvin Austin on special teams. But why would we?
I gotta believe it was a rain thing that it was a situation where they were back deep in their own end and they didn't want to risk having the rookie or, quote unquote, or, young player trying to make catches in the rain. That's the only thing I could come up with because, I do understand especially if you're already operating, that you can't afford to make any mistakes, that would be one that you'd think of. Because it was, like I said, until the second half, especially, it was very nasty.
Yep. But so that being said, like we said, the Steelers draw the Thursday night game this week, so it'll be interesting to see what happens from a practice standpoint, what they can really even get into this week. They typically may only practice one day, walk through the next, so it'll kind of be interesting to see how the team looks on a short week. Luckily, we are the home team, which the home team wins 60%, or roughly 60% of the Thursday night home football games. So maybe that's going in our favor. It also sounds like Kenny Pickett is going to play, even though, he took that rib injury on Sunday.
Is that a good thing?
Come on, man. Don't do that.
I'm not making an opinion one way or the other. Like, it's a fair question to ask. Like, an injured Kenny Pickett who might not be able to throw with his full range of motion and velocity, is that better than what the alternative would be?
I don't know. I mean, I saw some Steeler fans on Twitter clamoring to start freaking Rudolph today. So
yeah,
I know
desperation, man.
I better say I know the holidays around the corner, but Rudolph ain't leading us nowhere, guys. So
unless we're Santa.
Yeah, that's where I say we're not hitching our sleigh to that ride. Like I was saying, there are some other games coming up this week. Pittsburgh gets the early one. Really, this is kind of a big week of games if you go around and look around the slate. For example, we're going to start off with probably one of the biggest ones, a game that will decide who is the current projected number one seed in the AFC. The Miami Dolphins are traveling to Kansas City. Kansas City is a 2.5-point favorite, coming off probably the worst loss ever of the Patrick Mahomes era. I don't know. Maybe you can call it, losing that Super Bowl the worst loss or whatever. But boy, they just didn't look good this past weekend. Will, looked like you were about ready to say something. So
I was just saying, did either of you watch the Kansas City Denver game? Because I did not see anything from them. I have no idea why they lost that game.
Well, so Mahomes.
I only know that I was out on the losers pool, game one, and it's two losers pools in a row where I got knocked out in game one. So at any rate, yeah. Why?
So Mahomes was ill. I got a notification even before the game kicked off that he wasn't on the injury report per se, because it kind of popped up late or whatever, but apparently he was playing through an illness. Apparently the weather had a big impact on it. It was like freezing cold there, kind of just came in overnight. That was a big deal. And of course, they didn't have their secret weapon. There was no Taylor Swift in Denver. So we'll let you kick this one off.
Sure.
Like I said, Chiefs are favored by 2.5 at home.
I think I like Miami, but they have some holes. Their defense and special teams not very good, and I think if you're going to beat a team like Kansas City, you gotta at least have the minimum is you got to have an average defense that plays great and an offense that can score the kind of points that Miami can score. So I think Kansas City's defense we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and I think somebody else on the show said that they thought Kansas City's defense was overrated, but I actually think Kansas City defense is fine. It's just that they're overlooked because of what what that team can do on offense when it's rolling. At any rate, get well game for the Chiefs. I will take the Chiefs over Miami.
All right, Court.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of. This is some future like reverse psychology kind of stuff. I kind of like the Dolphins, and I kind of want the Dolphins. Oh, of course we want the Steelers to make the Super Bowl. Some of us are realists over here. I would like to see the Dolphins in the Super Bowl, other than the Steelers out of the AFC. So I'm going to predict the Chiefs to win this game because it's hard to beat a team twice, especially when you're going regular season to playoffs. So
that's some reverse psychology thing right there, man. That's
sorry to say, kind of like what you did there, Corey. So Chiefs to win and cover. I also think this is a get right game for the Chiefs. I don't think Mahomes losing back-to-back games has only happened, I think, once or twice in his entire 5-6 year career already. If he's healthy, I think he and Kelsey are back on the same page. It was Kelsey's worst outing since week 1, not week 1, week 2. He missed week 1. So first time under 60 yards since then. I mean, I know Kelsey's got to slow down at some point, but I think this is a get right game. I'm with you, Will. I think Kansas City's defense is just fine. They're young, they're hungry, they like to get after it.
Yeah, 5th best defense in the league. So right now, in terms of DVOA. So Miami, on the other hand, 22nd in defense. So that's what I'm telling you. It's the difference between these two teams.
Gotcha. All right. Kind of another big game happening this week for division lead, believe it or not. The Dallas Cowboys are headed to Philadelphia. The 5-2 Cowboys are taking on the best record in the NFL with the Eagles right now. Corey, let's go to you and get a prediction here. Eagles are favored by 3. I forgot to mention that.
I think this is a game that'll come down to the D-backs on the Cowboys end, and I don't think they have the horsepower to hold AJ Brown. The Eagles can beat you with Devontae Smith coming across the middle. They can run the ball regardless of who's at running back. But I feel like any team that doesn't have a concrete answer to what AJ Brown does, they just get shellacked by him. Like it's 200 yards. So I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I just don't think the Cowboys can contain AJ Brown, and I think that'll be the decider.
Gotcha. I'll follow that up. I'm kind of on board with you too. I think the Eagles are just a little too much for the Cowboys. I know the Cowboys have kind of had 2 get right games since they, lost really bad to San Fran. But at the same time, Eagles right now, I don't know. It's hard to say who the best team in the NFL is, this year. But we've had, top rated teams lose every single week. But it seems like the Eagles always do just enough to pull out and wins games. Even this past week against Washington, I mean, that was a game all the way through. Washington was attacking them at all levels of the field. I just don't feel like Dallas can do that. I think they're going to struggle to run the ball. When they struggle to run the ball, they struggle to pass the ball. I think it's kind of a cumulative snowball effect there as far as that goes. So I like the Eagles at home to win by 3 or greater at this point. Yeah, I just can't trust Dak Prescott. I mean, I don't care if he carves up the Rams, some other teams. He doesn't carve up good teams. So, and I think that's ultimately where the buck stops. Will, what do you think on this one?
I think
by 3 at home.
I think these teams are just about dead even. As they did last year, I kind of expected, like when you start looking at the Steelers season, you figure they're going to split with Baltimore because that's what they do every year when they have similar teams. So I think that's kind of what this series will be like. That the Eagles will win a tight game. What's the spread?
Eagles are at home. They're favored by 3.
Yeah, that's about the max I can see this being. But I'll take the Eagles and hope that they cover. And when you remind me when it comes around and they're playing at Dallas in a couple of weeks, I'll be picking Dallas.
Gotcha. So sounds like we're all on the Eagles at the moment. Another fun little game. Seattle headed to the East Coast to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are at home. They are a 5.5-point favorite. I'll start off this one. I really like Baltimore here. It just feels like they're starting to play better. I know they had a tight game this past weekend. I think it was against the Cardinals. Yeah.
Yes, Arizona.
Yeah, they won by like a touchdown. Whatever. It just seems like the Ravens are finding ways to score points when they need to. Mark Andrews is starting to get more involved in the passing game over the last few weeks. They've been running the ball better. Gus Edwards is doing some nice things in the running game there, but the defense is just playing better overall too. They started out the year, had that one game against the Colts where they had like 9 people injured. Now that they're getting healthier across the board, they're just playing like a better team. And honestly, if it wasn't for a few small little gaps, we're talking about the Ravens as the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. So I like the Ravens to cover at home. I like Seattle, just not quite enough to predict a win here. So it could be one of those interesting situations where Baltimore wins but doesn't cover. So beware of that 5.5-point line. Seattle's played a lot of teams really close this year. Will, let's throw it out to you. What do you think about this one?
Well, I think I might send it to Corey first because I know what he thinks of this game.
All right, let's go to Corey then.
The Ravens have put up 24, 38, and 31 in their last 3 games, which, that'd be nice if we could have by any chance managed to have grabbed an offensive coordinator with the pedigree of the Ravens' current offensive coordinator, who may or may not have been.
If only someone had suggested that, done some research and thought, that's the guy.
The number 1 guy, let alone I made a whole list, and they took my number 1 guy, divisional rival. I like the Seahawks. I think both these teams are actually, I don't know if their records are really as good as both of them are. Like, Baltimore 6-2, and the Seahawks are 5-2, if I'm correct.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So those are, I don't think either of them are that good. I think, percentage wise, they'll probably not be, triple what their loss is in terms of wins by the end of the season. But I'm still going to roll with the Ravens here. I don't think the Ravens are 7-2 good, but I also don't think the Seahawks are 6-2 good either. So I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think they're just a little more complete. I think the offensive attack's just a lot more diverse. Geno's aggressive, but, even with the new Leonard Williams trade, I'm just not a big believer in their defense still. They have the corners, but I'm not sure they can handle the run how they'll need to.
Gotcha. Well,
so the Ravens scored, 69 points the last 2 weeks. So if you divide that in half, the average score the last 2 weeks is almost 35 points. Let's call it 34. The Steelers have scored 27 points in the last 2 weeks total, to give you an idea, the relative scoring potential of these two teams. I think Baltimore right now, along with Jacksonville, may be playing as well as anybody in the league, maybe even better than Jacksonville, really, at this point, because of what their offense in Baltimore has done the last couple of weeks. So, right now their defense is playing the best of anyone, and their offense is top 5. So I'm taking Baltimore in this game.
All right. Another big game kind of this weekend for a team that's starting to round the corner, really beat the tar out of the 49ers the other day. Buffalo is headed to Cincinnati. Obviously, these two teams have some history with themselves, not too long ago with the DeMar Hamlin injury. Thank God he's better. But these two teams have been kind of seems like there's a rivalry brewing amongst these two towns, even though they're not even the same division. It's just a popular matchup right now. Cincinnati is at home. They're favored by 2.5. Corey, we'll throw it to you first here. I don't think we've started with you yet.
Yeah, both these teams are really good. I think this is a coin flip. Cincinnati was a slower starter. The Bills beat the bricks off the Dolphins, 5 weeks ago. But they haven't been rolling like that on offense. I think they lost to the Jags. They lost to the Giants. It's tough to lose to the Giants right now. They lost to the Patriots. It's tough to lose to the Patriots right now. And then I think they got a narrow win over the Bucs, which is, the Bucs aren't that good of a team. The Bengals are playing hot. I'm just going to go, even though I like the Bills long term, I like the Bills I think a little more once we'll get around playoff time. But right now, I think you not only ride the Bengals wave, but it being at home, I think you got to take the Bengals here.
All right, Will.
Yeah, they're going to pick up this game. Where were they? I was trying to remember. I blew the joke. I was trying to remember when the game was suspended last year when DeMar Hamlin got hurt. I was joking that they were going to pick up the game there at the same score and then start from there. That feels like that would be sort of like justified. I agree with Corey on this. I feel like last week I picked Cincinnati to beat San Francisco. I just felt like San Francisco, ultimately a better team, but just was having some issues. And the Bengals seem to have awoken a little bit. Like they've finally hit their stride of like, okay, we should be a little bit more desperate and we should try to get right. And they, unfortunately for the Steelers and everybody else in the AFC North and AFC, they do appear to be on that route. So I'll certainly take Cincinnati and, at home. So it feels like a good choice.
I really hate it when we all agree on the team.
Sorry.
Doesn't make it as much fun, but I mean, I after what
I'll tell you what, whatever next game you choose, you guys pick first, and if you agree, I will pick a different team.
All right. But I'm kind of on board with it. The Bengals just came off their most dominant performance all year long. I don't think that's going to change. That they found a way to run the ball on San Fran. If they can do it against San Fran, they're going to do it on Buffalo. Buffalo is not a great run defense team. Especially when Matt Milano went down, their captain on defense just hasn't been the same. So I like the Bengals here too. But big reason why the Bengals are winning right now, Joe Burrow can be under center again. He's healthy. He can move. He can do things. I mean, shoot, he had that one ridiculous play where it looked like the refs were going to blow it dead, and he got out of like 2 would-be sacks, ended up getting rid of the ball and going for a first down on some throw. This team is starting to hit its stride, and that's dangerous because offensively they can be very dangerous when that happens. And even though they don't have any like stars on defense, they've got a lot of good players like Trey Hendrickson, Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, their corner whose name is escaping me, Awuzie, I think.
Cam Taylor-Britt. That's what you're trying to think of.
Yeah, Cam Taylor-Britt, the second-year player out of Nebraska. This team is just starting to put it together. They are just looking dangerous. So let's move on to our one last game before we get to our 5-star matchup of the week. I don't know if it's 5 stars. We continue to call it that. Give me a break.
Inflation, with inflation, it's 5 stars.
5 out of 25.
Right. So we won't be talking about the Thursday night game, but we are going to be talking about the Monday night game where the Chargers are headed to the New York Jets. Jets are getting 3 at home. Corey, I'll let you start off with this one, but I feel like this is kind of an interesting game in itself.
I like the Jets defense. I'm just not a buyer of Zach Wilson versus Justin Herbert. I feel like sometimes there's too big of a quarterback disparity. And as much as I like the Jets defense, I like their team a lot. I'm just going to go with Herbert here. I think he gets it done.
Gotcha. Will?
Oh no, you're supposed to go first. Next.
That's right. Sorry, you're right.
Okay.
One of the reasons I picked this game is because it means a hell of a lot to both teams. If the Jets win this, they get to a 500 record. Does getting to a 500 record mean Rodgers comes back at some point to potentially lead them to the playoffs, even though that would just be a miraculous recovery from an Achilles injury? Or do the Chargers finally start to put some things together where they're starting to look like a team that can at least make the wild card? Because you want to talk about a slow starting team. The Chargers have always been a slow starting team. If they win this next one against the Jets, I think they improve to 4-4 or 4-5. I can't remember if they've had their bye yet, but they get closer to getting the playoffs too. I'm kind of with Corey. Justin Herbert's been playing incredibly well right now. Just distributing the ball. Not to mention a healthy Austin Eckler does wonders for that offense when they can just dump it off to him. I mean, I lost a parlay this past week because I wanted – this is going to sound so ridiculous. all I needed was 32 rushing yards from Austin Eckler. No, he has to get over 100 through the air. That's just the type of back he is. He can get it on the ground. He can get through the air, and he's just absolutely lethal when they get him to the ball after the catch. So thanks a lot, Austin. You did help me win a few fantasy things, but you screwed me.
This is why fantasy is ruining football, just because
it is. It is.
You're knocking the guy for having a huge day.
Because jokingly.
Yeah.
But so I'm with the Chargers here. I think they win kind of comfortably at some point at this point.
Cool. Well, conveniently, I like the Jets. Here's the thing: for all of the prowess of the Chargers offense, basically these two teams are mirror images of one another. They have one great unit and one terrible unit, and they're going to be facing each other in this game. So you basically have top 10 offense against the top 10 defense when the Chargers have the ball, and you have a bottom 3 offense when the Jets have it, and a bottom 3 defense when the Chargers are on the field. So it could be quite a good matchup, actually. And to me, those things kind of even out a little bit. It feels like it'll be tough to score points in this game. I'm inclined to take the under. And in a tight game, which I think it will be, because the Jets seem to have an affinity for playing tight games, much like the Steelers. The Jets, to this point in the season, have statistically the best special teams unit in the league, and the Chargers do not. So I'll take the Jets narrowly in this game, especially since I believe they're getting points, as you said. I'll take the Jets at home dog.
All right. We didn't even have to throw an artificial disagreement in there for you to take the other team.
I may deny it later, but yeah, for now I'm taking the Jets.
All right. That brings us back to our 5-star matchup, the game that's going to kick off the week on Thursday Night Football. Don't forget to set your fantasy lineups like I always do. Titans come into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is favored by 3 at home at the moment. I'll go ahead and start this one off so you guys don't have to. Just feels like it's another get-right game for Pittsburgh, even though Will Levis is there. I think we can win the battle up front. I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about matchups. I think our defensive line does enough this week to where we get enough pressure, maybe force that turnover. God forbid our defense scores in a game to make it a close game or anything. But I like Pittsburgh here. Pickett is going to play. The one thing you got to give the kid is he's tough. He's going to go out there and give it his all. Hopefully, we can just keep him upright. I think that's kind of the key there. Because if Trubisky comes in the game, he's thrown into triple coverage all game, and we're not going to win. So that being said, I'll take Pittsburgh at home at a score of yikes, 17-13. 17-13. There will not be a lot of points scored in this one. Corey, let's go to you.
Let's have Will go.
No, let's go to Will.
I'm sorry, we're manipulating Jeremy's poor show.
Sorry, you guys are just passing each other off. Just like, give me some heads up.
I think that this game would have been a very close game with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Like if you look at what they've done so far this year, aside from last weekend, I think they're pretty much we're very close to dead even. So it makes me inclined to think that even without taking matchups into account, that this would already be a very close game and maybe a little bit of an edge to Tennessee because, until proven otherwise, I imagine Will Levis will get broken at some point and somebody will have 3 picks off him, and he'll have to rethink his whole mentality. But until that happens, and this doesn't feel like the Steelers team is really the team to shut down your passing game. At least in terms of yards. So maybe they get their turnovers and get some points together, but I kind of feel like this is a 23-13 Titans win. I really worry about the Simmons matchup in the middle that that'll kind of disrupt what the Steelers would like to do running the football, because they'll still be insistent on trying to run it up the middle or within range of Simmons. And on the other side of it, take whatever DraftKings over-under is for Hopkins in yardage. I would say take the over, and whatever they have for Derrick Henry for yardage, I would take the over. So I think the Steelers edge rushers, I think the world of them, they've been amazing. And, they had real moments this year, but without Minka, against a team that's going to be hard for them to totally shut down because they're pretty physical and they have at this moment a confident quarterback and a good run game. The Steelers have none of those things right now.
Sorry, did you mention the score?
23-13.
Okay, gotcha. Just want to double check. Corey, give us your thoughts and predictions.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a slob fest. I think this is going to be a game that people are complaining about all over the internet about why it's a primetime game. I just, Kenny being hurt, Will Levis probably having 3 or 4 weeks before teams start to adjust. Derrick Henry, I don't have much faith in us being able to tackle him that well. Minka was easily our most steady tackler back there. Kazee and Neal hasn't been in for many tackle opportunities, but I know Kazee's had a lot of ankle whiffs. I just don't think that this week lines up that well for us. And I like, the Thursday night thing where the home team wins a lot, but confident Will Levis versus Kenny Pickett, is injured Kenny Pickett at that, is a matchup I'm really worried about. And I think it's going to be really, really sloppy. And, you typically say that those games will favor the Steelers, but, I'm a little nervous without Minka back there because I'm not sure, Will Levis is the quick trigger release. I'm a little worried about those deep shots being hit more than they would be intercepted with Minka back there. So I'm going to go, what's a dumb score? 18-13,
By the way, we had a scoregami last week. The 40-26, whatever that game was with the Rams and Cowboys was the first time for that score ever. Sorry.
Really interesting.
But yeah, 18-13, don't ask me how it gets there.
That's a great year, 18-13. Fabulous.
The Steelers always end up, is that when their offense is from?
It feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, guys, they're still lining up, soldiers across the field, just shooting at each other in the picket lines. Yep, that's our.
I think they'd be better at the brotherly shove, because it's like whole time football.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, at least if the offense was from 18-13, that at least soldiers had learned to duck behind a wall at that point. So I don't know, but yeah. So it'll be. Go ahead, Will.
Did you pick Jeremy? What was your score?
Yeah, I said 17-13 Pittsburgh.
Oh, you did.
The only one here who, thinks.
I know you're flying the flag, man. I appreciate it. Somebody has.
I was going to pick the Steelers going into the segment, and then I was just kind of sitting on it, and I was like,
That's why you waited to hear what I had to say. By the way, Jeremy, we Corey and I have noticed that you've abandoned picking in the CBS score game the way that we are. And you did this because you think that somehow statistically you're going to end up with a better percentage of picking games than we are. But I got news for you, man. Pretty soon I'm going to.
Will just got 13. That's impressive.
Pull the plug on you. Hey, by the way, 2 things quickly about this game that we didn't mention, none of us. Mm-hmm. If the Titans get up 2 scores, that Steelers thing about coming back in the fourth quarter and keeping it close and winning it at the end is going to be a real problem because they're going to give you a big dose of their run game and they're very good at closing games out with that on that team. That's the way they like to play. They would
for the past 2 years, they've been a lot more effective. I'll say 3 years. For the past 3 years, they've been a lot more effective at playing the brand of football that the Steelers want to. Like what they do is exactly what the Steelers want to do, but they're better at it because they better.
Yeah.
Harris is no Derrick Henry.
And the second thing I was going to say is, the Steelers already kind of protect Kenny Pickett, and with what they design the offense to do is, mostly safe throws for him and running the ball first and second down, trying to get the third down and all that business. Hats off to Tennessee, who normally plays that way. Like that's the way they played with Tannehill. That's the way they played with Malik Willis. But with Will Levis, they were just like, fuck it, kid. Shoot it downfield. We don't care,
Well, there's something funny about that. I don't know. I watch the QB School religiously. I'm not sure how many people go watch it. The Will Levis breakdown came out today. And the first touchdown to Hopkins, he goes, I don't know how the hell he got to this go route because 9 times out of 10, you're looking to hit this over that's coming off. But Will Levis comes out, boom, shoulder pumps to safety, uncorks it. DeAndre Hopkins goes and makes a play. So there's a pretty decent chance that the Titans were running their normal stuff, and Will Levis is like, fuck it.
Screw it. But I mean, but they didn't at any point like reel him in to start running the football 5 times a series,
Run all curls like
Yeah, exactly. So I do give them credit for rolling with it, and here's the biggest difference, and this is the last thing I want to say, that I don't know if you guys see highlights even of the Tennessee game. Look at the sideline for Tennessee when he starts making plays down the field. They're just, the defensive players are so jacked. It's like the greatest thing that ever happened to them. I think they've been long suffering, like what we're suffering with like this offense that doesn't do anything. And a guy coming in on an offense that's normally like that and lighting it up, I think was a really big emotional lift for them. Another reason that I fear this game, I think more likely that it's not going to be that close. But, Thursday night, home team, Steelers on prime time. I could be totally wrong, but it just has that feel.
You know who the number 3 quarterback always plays against the most is the starting defense. So they're probably like, yeah, not against us anymore.
That's our guy. Yeah, exactly. We don't have to play him anymore in practice.
Yeah, that practice squad's elated that they get to just go against Willis all the time now. So, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Steelers fans, for joining us here another episode here on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Corey Kerbowski, Corey39. Well, Massuck, as Bradshaw to Ben. Last way we'll end this is kind of on a somber note, not too much, but the Steelers did lose a member of their family today. Patrick J. Rooney passed away today, brother of Daniel M. Rooney. So that always sucks. So Steelers might get an emotional lift just from that. Sometimes grief, can corral the senses and get people to play up to their level of talent or more. So sad to say, rest in peace, and our thoughts are with the Rooneys at this time. Here we go, Steelers.